Welcome to my online graduate practicum forum for spring 2017. My name is Chassidy Deckard, and I will be your presenter. I am a graduate student and Master's of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies candidate in the Department of Occupational, Workforce, and Leadership Studies at Texas State University. Today, I will take you on a journey of my professional practicum experience titled Student Athlete Career Development. With my experience recruiting and selecting candidates, I thought it was important to gain additional experience and share my knowledge by working with students to help them prepare for their next step after graduation. For the past 10 weeks, I have been working to assist with developing programming and activities to help student athletes transition from undergraduate studies to their professional life after Texas. Student athletes have many options for different paths after they complete their undergraduate coursework. Some of these paths include entering the workforce, continuing their education in graduate or professional school, or going professional in their sport. To meet the goals of my practicum purpose, I broke down my experience into 4 distinct learning objectives. My first objective was to teach student athletes strategies on enhancing their resumes, personal statements, cover letters, and graduate school applications. The second objective I completed was assisting with planning free formal career development programs for student athletes. The third objective was to establish, grow, and maintain a network of career development and academic professionals by attending meetings, seminars, and online training sessions pertaining to career development, student athletes, and higher education. My final objective was to work with student athletes on career and major exploration activities to give them options on future career paths based on their interests and personality. For my practicum, I worked in the After Texas Center office for Texas Athletics at the University of Texas. I worked under the direct supervision of the Director of Career Services for Texas Athletics, Tina Kine. I sought out this practicum experience because I knew the NCAA continues to state that college student athletes graduate at higher rates than non-student athletes, but I also knew that after graduation, some of these same student athletes were not as prepared to transition to the workforce compared to their non-student athlete counterparts. Working in a department that truly cared about the livelihood of these student athletes beyond their 4 or 5 years participating in their sport on campus was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. I had several great experiences throughout my 10 weeks on my practicum site. I will now discuss my top 3 most impactful moments of my practicum. The first highlight of my practicum was the Longhorn Career Combine. The Longhorn Career Combine was our first formal career event of the semester. During this event, we reached out to recruiters and professionals from different organizations to present on 6 different career topics. The 6 stations were LinkedIn, resume critiques, mock interviews, professional etiquette, what professional recruiters are looking for, and Indeed job searching. I worked with a colleague of mine at the LinkedIn station and helped students enhance the content on their LinkedIn profile. The second highlight was the Leadership Austin Breakfast. Leadership Austin is an organization that helps train emerging and essential leaders interested in civic engagement and community relationships. Some of the key points that were discussed during this breakfast included the 60 by 30 Texas Higher Education Plan, which is a plan to have 60% of the 25 to 34-year-olds that are in the workforce earn a post-secondary degree or credential by 2030. The panelists also spoke on education under the Trump administration, changing the negative stigma of community colleges, and the need for more Tier 1 universities in the state of Texas. The most important point I took away from the breakfast was the need for businesses to offer internships and working experience to college students to prepare them for the workplace. They stated that a degree without any experience is simply just not enough. Lastly, what I consider my most impactful moment during my practicum experience was when I was working with a student athlete that stated, "I don't have anything to put on my resume." When the student came to get their resume worked on, the resume consisted of a name, contact information, education, and 1 service organization. When we were finished, the student left with a full-page resume with great experience that they had actually participated in. I asked guiding questions such as, have you participated in any community service events? What skills did you learn while playing your sport that will be valuable in the workplace? Have you participated in any summer camps? What was the role in these camps? Have you worked with students and served as a mentor? What type of class projects did you participate in while at UT that will be beneficial to teaching and coaching? I use this information to get them thinking on everything that they've accomplished while at the university. There was a moment where this student just was staring at their new resume in disbelief at what they'd accomplished outside of their sport during their time at UT. It was at that very moment that put everything in perspective as to the purpose of my practicum experience. There are several authors that have conducted scholarly research on career development with student athletes. As you will see, Christina Navarro is a leader and a true MVP in the field of student athlete identity and career development. Below are 3 articles that were beneficial during my practicum experience. The first article was titled Millennial Student Athletes and Career Development. This article is written by Christina Navarro and Stephen Mavasso. The article begins by stating that on average, less than 3% of student athletes at the college level will make it professionally in their sport. Therefore, there is a great need for student affairs professionals to prepare student athletes for their life after their sport. Next, Christina Navarro was an author in the second article along with Heather McCormick. This article was titled Outcome-Based Career Preparation Programs for Contemporary Student Athletes. This study provided many great statistics regarding student-athlete career preparedness from former Division I football players that were 3 to 7 years post-graduation. The study showed that 92% of the students saw a need for student-athlete career development. That's a very high percentage, but unfortunately, it took after graduation for these students to realize the importance of career development programming. Only 25% of the students visited their career services office while in school. Due to the lack of career preparation while in undergrad, 83% of the student athletes in the study did not feel career prepared after graduation, and 90% of them experienced dissatisfaction with their first job post-graduation. With all these students and statistics, it is critical for everyone involved with working with student athletes to get them to learn the importance of career development while they're in undergrad and get them to take advantage of their resources before it's too late. The final article, written by Saduri Haserlig and Christina Navarro, titled Aligning Athletes' Career Choices in Graduate Degree Programs. The literature focused on 2 major concepts that student athletes deal with while in college. The first, academic clustering, and the second is role identity. The literature suggests that college student athletes identify more with their athletic role compared to their academic role, and this negatively influences their campus integration and engagement. Another obstacle is academic clustering, and this is when student affairs professionals advise students to enroll in degree programs to remain eligible instead of choosing a major that aligns with their career goals. There are several things I learned about myself through reflections of my practicum experience. Here I will expand on my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats during my practicum. One of the greatest strengths that I was able to exhibit during this experience was my ability to communicate effectively to students, my supervisor, professional, academic, and athletic staff members. A weakness that I became well aware of during this process was my attention to detail. For the first few resumes I worked on, my supervisor critiqued and looked over every one of them. I realized that it wasn't so much the content that I needed to change, but I needed to improve formatting and correct things such as making sure all of the bullet points were the same size and making sure the spacing was consistent throughout the entire resume. Although some of these things may seem minor, I realize that these things are something that I need to be more mindful of. As for opportunities, I appreciate the willingness of my supervisor to include me in all meetings with individuals from career development at different universities, meeting with members from the new football coaching staff, and inviting me to networking opportunities to meet leaders in the Austin area. These opportunities truly made an impact on the overall experience, and I made great connections with leaders in the field. A threat that I experienced was not knowing the student athletes. I felt like my supervisor and a colleague of mine knew so much more about the students just when someone would give them a name. They knew their sport, they knew which position they played, they knew how good an athlete this person were, and they also knew if this student had high grades. Therefore, I think it was a threat not having those prior connections. I just focused on learning about the student athletes that I worked with primarily. With graduation approaching, ideally I would want to stay with my current employer but advocate for a more senior or director level job for myself to showcase the knowledge and skills that I have gained through completing this graduate program. Since we are a national organization, I wanted to be able to showcase my skills and abilities by working with individuals throughout the entire firm and not just limit myself to the Texas region. I've scheduled a meeting with our COO to discuss these plans in the near future. I also plan to use my experience to take the leadership roles in professional organizations, and I would use that platform to encourage my colleagues to consider hiring interns, such as the student athletes that I've worked with. Lastly, I think that this experience gives me leverage to make a move into the academic setting, which is something that I consider pursuing down the line in my career. Thank you all so much for tuning in and learning about my practicum experience. On the YouTube page below, please indicate your anonymous preference for this practicum by clicking on one of these two icons. Also, please post your comments or questions in the YouTube comments section. I will respond to your inquiries posted between March 27th and April 9th through this webpage. Thank you again. I hope you enjoy.